One of the mistakes of parenting today is overprotection. You love your child so much that you allow their excesses become their downfall. The values you instill on your children is superior to the valuables you leave to them. There are basically two things that determine if a person or a people will be destroyed. Number one, that we are all aware of, is knowledge. My people perish for lack of knowledge. Then number two is said, where there is no vision, the people cast off restraint. That is to say, vision has a way of governing behavior. What's your vision as a parent for your child? How do you intend your child to grow up? What values do you want to live with your children? And what values do you want them to live by? Are you a model or a mirror that your child will be proud of? Let's dive into the subject and see what it takes. Today, parents are more scared than they used to be. Our parents were more confident and less scared than we are. What exactly could be responsible for this? Are you a parent or would be parents? Someday you would become one. So what I'm about to share with you in this session is something that should interest you and you should take to heart, so that you don't make the mistakes that make people sorrow when they are supposed to be happy in their old age. Are there ways in which we can actually live our lives as parents and also nurture our children to give us rest in old age? Too many people have lived their lives in regret in their old age. When they ought to be resting was when their stress was stretched. Are there ways of escape from this terrible dilemma? Of course, if you're part of my generation as a millennial, of course, it's different. How I was raised, I won't raise my children like that. Some part of it and some other part of it. The today or the 21st century child needs obligatory parenting beyond just being a father or a mother. My name is Julius Afolabi, and once again I welcome you to this channel and this episode. Today's episode is about parents and parenting. Interestingly, we're going to be discussing the cards that parents ignorantly play. My surest counsel for anyone today is this: before you get married, right? Before you get married, do not only pursue provisional responsibility. It is important for you to attend a parenting class so that you can establish exactly what values and what kind of family or what kind of home you intend to build. To a large extent, it's going to determine your happiness in your business, in your career, and in your later life. As Christians, we have the responsibility of training up our children in the way that they should go, so that when they grow old, they would not depart from it. But today, there are homes in which children are well raised, but at one point or the other, something happened, and we are wondering what could have happened to this child who was raised from a home. Now, this can be enveloped in the card that the parents played. Ignorance is not a negotiable asset. It's not an asset at all. It's a liability. Ignorance is a liability in anything. That's why the Bible said, my people perish for lack of knowledge. There are basically two things that determine if a person or a people will be destroyed. Number one, that we are all aware of, is knowledge, right? My people perish for lack of knowledge. Then number two is said, where there is no vision, the people cast off restraint. That is to say, vision has a way of governing behavior. What's your vision as a parent for your child? How do you intend your child to grow up? What values do you want to live with your children? And what values do you want them to live by? Are you a model or a mirror that your child will be proud of? Let's dive into the subject and see what it takes. When you take a car to a panel beater and you watch how the panel beater hits the car, the first thing that comes to mind is probably you are thinking that the car is being damaged further. The simple wisdom there is that the panel beater is either beating the car into shape or out of shape. As a parent, are you beating your children to shape or out of shape? This can happen in the card that you are playing ignorantly. Now there are 4 cards. What I prescribe, I am a proponent of obligatory parenting. Obligatory parenting is that kind of parenting where I have done all as required of me by God, such that I would have no bars when I stand before God concerning my children. And they will not say that I did not teach them these things or they were not aware of this, the obvious, right? That's obligatory. I take it as an obligatory responsibility to be there for them. So, to us, obligatory parents, our children are gold, and we surely want to see them do better than we have done. So I said there are about 4 different cards that parents play. But before then, there are 4 factors that determine the card that you play and how you play the card as a parent. Today's child is not interested in legalization, right? We know you said that when you spare the rod, you will spoil the child. What exactly is the rod? Rod is R-O-D, isn't it? Right? Some people see rod as the cane, but I see rod as what? R for responsibility, O for operating standards, and then D for discipline. That is the rod. You understand? And so don't spare responsibility, don't spare operating standard, don't spare discipline, or else you will spoil not just the present but the future of your child. The big question is this: if your child is to recant what parenting means, what definition do you think would come from your own child as a Christian father or as a kingdom-minded parent? So this is the reason why I said, apart from going for marriage counseling before you get married, take a parenting class, take a parenting course before you get married. So 4 factors that really will determine the kind of card that you play includes: number 1 is knowledge. How much you know and how well you know as a parent to a large extent determine the card that you play. We are talking about the cards that parents play ignorantly. They don't know, they are not aware. But let's see how the card go. So the basis for the card that you play is 1, knowledge. Number 2 is priorities. What are the things that are important to you as a parent for your child? And then number 3 is the value. Who exactly are you? And what are the personal standards that you hold or you uphold? Are we together? What standards do you want your children to hold? So we have knowledge, we have priority, we have what? Values. And then the last basis is what? Modeling. What you model as a parent to a large extent determine what your children will actually manifest. Right? So some parents model a different thing from what they say. When your words and your actions are not in synergy, the child gets confused. Today, there are 3 institutions that should help in modeling the child. We have the home, which is the first university of any child. And then we have the religious institutions, and then we have the society. But you can see the religious institutions' focus today is not on the children, it's not on the child per se, right? So we are not actually preparing the next generation, right? We are just like the politicians that think of the next election rather than what the next generation, right? So we cannot absolutely depend on the religious bodies for the nurturing and the upbringing of our children, even though they carry the standards and the values that we want. If you check it out, your children spend the whole time with you, more time with you, and then the school itself, right? The school can't do it all. Teachers cannot do it all. Parents must become teachers, and teachers must become parents. We need to establish the standards of God beyond the standards of the world. Today, the society teaches our children better than we teach them at home. The society is more proactive than parents, right? The schools are more business-oriented, business-minded, profit-minded than the transformation and the destiny of your children. So it comes back to you as a parent. The responsibility is on you. So we have your knowledge gap is going to affect who your children will become or what kind of future you'd have, your values, your priority, and what you model. Now, the 4 cards that parents play include this. We have divide and rule card. In some homes, you find that parents have favorites. You see, this is the truth. You will love your children equally, but you are going to relate with them uniquely. Right? You will love your children equally, but you are going to relate with them uniquely. All your children will not be the same. They are all unique in their own ways, but you will love them equally. Love them equally, but relate with them with their uniqueness. Some are cerebral, some are technical, some are hands-on, some are emotional, some want attention, some don't care about attention, some want to play with gadgets, some love games, and the rest of them. So you're going to relate with them uniquely, but you're going to love them equally. So divide and rule will show. These are some of the pitfalls in parenting. The moment you show favoritism on the part of one child, what happens is that that child becomes overparented, right? You overprotect that child. One of the mistakes of parenting today is overprotection. You love your child so much that you allow their excesses become their downfall, right? The values you instill on your children is superior to the valuables you leave to them. The values you instill in your children is superior to the valuables you leave to them. If your children have values, your valuables are secured. But if they lack values, your valuables are of no good. They can't keep or sustain anything that you are going to give to them. So it's important. So divide and rule is dangerous. A country, the African descent, has suffered from that dilemma, divide and rule. That is, you love one party and then you don't show the same dimension of love to another party. The moment there is favoritism in the home or amidst your children, there is a problem. Then we have, let them have their way card. Let them have their way card, right? Divide and rule card, and then let them have their way card is you are overprotecting the child. The child lacks life coping skills. You don't want the child to do anything. You just want them to do. Like some parents have to, because of security challenges in the peculiarity of the environment that you live in, maybe in Nigeria right now, you can't allow your child to go write exams or do certain things on their own. In our days, we could go to write exams on our own. I remember I went to write my JAM myself. Nobody followed me. But today, you find parents sit down with their kids from morning till when they finish the exam, overprotecting the child, right? There are certain things you don't allow the children to do because there are housemates to do them. And today's child does not want to do anything. That's the truth. Because of technology and the leverage of artificial intelligence, there is a height of mental laziness that is in vogue today. There's virtually nothing that the artificial intelligence cannot do for you. They don't want to write their exams. They simply want to take up their smartphones and go to Google and ask. A lot of students in university no longer write their thesis or their projects. They simply contract somebody to do it for them. So you can see, they think that they are smart, but they are being outsmarted by technology. Technology is only an accelerator, not an initiator. So the mind of the child needs to be appropriately developed with values and priorities right from the home, right? So there must be life coping skills that they need to learn. So let them have their way simply means you are going to lose them in the future. If they have their way, if you let them have their way, whatever it is, the law of entropy says that whatever is allowed on its own will definitely tend to grow worse. So if you let them have their way, they will never grow cultured, right? Whatever does not have boundaries is a bondage. So the bondage of the future is in the boundaries that you did not keep today. Do as I say card. The third card that parents ignorantly play is do as I say. They do not want to listen to their kids. A lot of parents don't listen to their children. Children have a lot of things they want to say to you, but if you don't listen to them, you never know how they're feeling. And this, to a large extent, is responsible for the excuse of mental health that a lot of children complain about. Any little thing today, you say, mental health, and so we find out that what? Children are beginning to, there are a lot of compromises for them, and they're getting out of hand, right? They're really getting out of hand. This does not mean you should become excessively tough and corporal, right? But rather, you should communicate more. And communication is largely in listening. They have got something to say. Listen to them. There are parents that want to establish what their children will become. I want you to become a doctor, and that's it. I have been teaching teenagers and interacting, having conversations with them for over a decade, almost 1.5 decades. I've been interacting. And there are certain conversations that they have with us as teachers that they cannot have with their parents. There is more of provisional responsibility than attention. There is attention scarcity because of provisional responsibility. The chase to make provision for them is denying them the attention that they require from us as parents. These children need our attention beyond our provision. The provision will be useless if you don't have attention to know what exactly they need per time. There are troubles that they go through in school that they need to discuss with you, that if they cannot discuss with you, they are going to run into murky waters. And all that you have been running around to be able to secure for them, you would have to let go in order to attend to their errors, right? Now you'll be doing damage control instead of that which is avoidable, right? And then the next card that is played is what? Let us reason together card. So we have what? The first card is what? Divide and rule card, where favoritism is optimum. And we have let them have their way. No boundaries, no discipline, no restriction, no restraints, no guide, no standards at home. If there are no standards at home, then we have do as I say, legalization. It is what I say that is final. You don't want to hear their own side of the story. It makes them feel left out, and they would seek opinion from others. If you don't listen to them, other people will listen to them that are going to train them in the direction opposite to whatever it is that you desire. Their destiny can be battered that way. Then last card that parents would be required to play is let us reason together. God said, let the children come unto me because theirs is the kingdom of God. So if Christ is going to entertain kids, why can't you entertain your children? Why can't you listen to them? Why can't you think the way they think? Why can't you marry your own ideas? There are times, you see, we might have character, but they have speed, right? If you're doing business, take your child to your business point. Listen to what they observe. Make them see the commitment that is involved in bringing them what they have, so that they learn that these things don't just come by whims and caprices. They are worked for. Let them know the dignity of labor. Let them know what it takes to plan and set goals. My kids' scores in schools have grown simply because we sit down together to do goal setting. They have a list of all their subjects and the grades that they aim to achieve. And after every of their continuous assessments and exams, they come and tabulate it. Before their teachers calculate their scores, they know what they have gotten already. So their results are predictable, right? And that's as a result of sitting down to do these things with them. Now, my kids can confide in me because they can ask me any questions. I don't stop them from asking questions, right? So we are reasoning together. Now, there are difficult tasks that they have to do that they engage me. They have won several competitions because I practice with them, right? I'm very busy, yet not too busy for those that I am busy running about for. A lot of parents are busy but are not in business. So you can be busy and not in business. Today, can you tell exactly where your son is? Can you tell exactly what is on the mind of your daughter? If your daughter were to describe you, can you tell precisely what they will say about you? Would you say you have been a great father and a mentor and a coach to that boy or to that girl? The fact that you have same gender kids doesn't mean you are less a parent. If you play the divide and rule card, of course, you will have a strained and offensive relationship in the end. If you play let them do what they want card, of course, it may be heartbreaking. And if you play the do as I say card, it will be pressure breathing. But if you play the let us reason together card, you will be having an exciting and enjoyable what? Parent and what? And child relationship. Now, here's a smack for you. Ask your children to describe their feelings about you and their home. Today, that's an exercise for you. Ask your children to describe their feelings about you and their home. Now, this is the rule. You might not like what you hear. Don't condemn or punish. It's just a feedback for you to reflect on. So sometimes, it might be easy to correct other people's children, but difficult to fix your own child. This happens a lot with pastors. You see them pastoring other people's families and children very well, but theirs have gone haywire. Where is the missing link? You are ignorantly playing one of these cards, without knowing. So it's possible for you to be able to spot the difference with this. Ask yourself this empowering question. Am I misinterpreting or misunderstanding my children? If your children are misbehaving and you are more of yelling than having a conversation with them, you've got to sit down and revisit your parenting style. Which of these cards are you playing ignorantly? Are you over-demanding or lowering your standards? Some parents are overbearing, and some are overprotecting or overparenting, thereby lowering the standard that should beat the child to shape. They are rather beating the child out of shape. Are you suffering from a system to performance gap when what you say is not what they see? Right? That is a system to performance gap. You demonstrate or talk about a system that you expect of them, but they don't see in you. Your children have never seen you reading, but you want them to constantly read. How do you expect? This is a system and performance gap. You need to close that gap if you must see an improvement in that direction. So lastly, this is what I have to say to you. Here are 4 things to do. Help them to discover who they are. One of the greatest things you would do for your children is to help them discover who they are. The moment they can see who they are, it will be easier for them to be able to even govern themselves and align to whatever it is, the prescription that you are giving to them. Why? Vision governs behavior. Number 2, help them understand the times. Show them the realities of today. For instance, I want to raise a balanced kid and not just an extremist. I don't want a fanatic as a child. I want a balanced child who can operate within the church and in the marketplace. Right? So I take them to the marketplace to see what happens. I show them what happens in the world. Like in the entertainment industry, for instance, now, there are certain standards that require compromise of values before you can get to certain heights. But there is a level of mastery that you will acquire that they can't bend the rules for you. That they cannot bend the rules for you. They have to stick to your own rule. Just like Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Rather than compromising their standards, the people had to live up to their standard. Isn't it? These boys were brought up in a way with values and belief system to an extent that they edited the constitution of a land. The king had to review the constitution of that land to align with what their values were. From the first day they landed in a compromised environment, they had their decision and their choices made. Daniel said, I purposed in my heart not to defile myself. I have my own diet, not the diet of the world. There is the diet of the world and there is the diet of what kings. The diet of kings, the Bible says, We are king and we are priest, right? So what is the diet of your kids at home? That will determine the health of their growth. What is the nutritional value of your parenting in the marketplace and in the world? When your kid stands and they discuss with people 5-10 minutes, what can they draw? They say charity begins at home. What is the charity that is beginning from your own home? To a large extent, they say, if you don't love their mother, you can't love them. So what happens between you and your spouse? Spousal management can determine children upbringing to a large extent. So it's a support, and both of us needs to what? To work together. And lastly, help them know when to say no. Help them know when to say no. I said, number one, help them to know who they are. Number two, help them to understand the times, right? Let them understand what the world is doing, what the world standards are, what the world standard is. The world standard is superior to the world standard, right? And then help them to embrace fundamental values. Help them to embrace what? Fundamental values, right? And then lastly, help them to do what? To know when to say no. When they know when to say no, they'll be able to discern what is good and what is bad. So in doing that, if you do that, this is what you achieve. You achieve that by doing what? By training, by teaching, by instructing, by coaching, by mentoring, by challenging. Challenge their potential. My son used to have a challenge with starting off the generator, but his kid sister could do that. And over time, I thought it was a defect, and I was angry, overtly angry with him, until I sat down to listen to him. Why is it that you could not start the gen that your kid sister could start? And he said that the day he tried to start the gen, he cut the rope. So the fear of cutting the rope had stopped him from trying. And that day I repented of being angry with him and had to instruct him and coach him and said that you tried and failed does not mean that you are a failure. You've got to keep trying. If you have to cut the rope severally, go ahead and cut it, but ensure that you get it right. So you see, if I did not sit down to listen to him, I would have been using the rod wrongly. I would have been caning, getting angry without listening to him. Right? So I don't know if that's also something that's happening to you. Right? Don't just legalize, don't just punish. So if you play the right card, I'm telling you, you're going to have peace tomorrow. I don't know how this session has added value to you and your home. I'd like to get what your feedbacks are, what your reaction, and what your questions might be. And probably in subsequent episode, we'll be able to handle what your questions and your challenges are in your parenting journey. I look forward to seeing you smile and have a regret-free old age because you have raised your children right. Raising a child in a compromised world is a heavy task. It's not just being a parent, but being an obligatory parent. Thank you for your time and God bless you. I remain Julius Afolabi.